Hello everyone, this is Season Ovo 92 and today we're back for another brand new video and I'm back already, and I know you're sitting there saying, oh my god, I thought he was giving us the international break off, and I do apologise about that. But before I set you off on that international break sunset and a wee breather for all things Rangers, there is one last thing for us to wrap up. There is one last little bit of business me and they need to conclude as that transfer window curtain has slammed shut, and that's reacting to it all, ladies and gentlemen. The ins, the outs, the shaking it's, all our boots, and sitting down me and thee and breaking down position per position, player by player, where our football club is, and reacting and asking the question, have we done enough? So it's fair to say there's going to be a hell of a lot broken down in today's video, so we're just going to have to dive right into this. By the way, if you don't mind hitting a like button, that'd be sensational, or if you want to see if this content's worth hitting a like for, that's fair. Let's go ahead to try and earn that like and earn that subscription then, shall we? And the way we'll break this off is we'll look at the ins very briefly, we'll look at the outs, we'll do some comparisons, and then again we'll get to that squad depth and rate our squad and rate our chances of lifting any silverware this season. But we'll start off with the ins then, shall we? Because it should be a hell of a lot briefer, as me and thee have spent most of the summer in 10 to 15, sometimes 20-minute segments breaking down all these players individually. So we'll not do that today, we'll do it rapid fire. And as we are talking about ins, let's go ahead and break these 14 new additions to the football club that we made. Yes, it was 14, but we'll start off by looking at the 5 loanees then, shall we? And when you break those down, you have 4 defensive reinforcements and 1 wee winger sprinkled in it. That as we welcome Jayden to the football club. And thank God, by the way, because spoiler alert for later on in today's video, it is barren back there. And I'm not talking about wee Connor. So we've got 1 fullback. On the other side we have Anullians, as Mr. Max Aarons was brought in to the football club and then seemingly melted under the pressure and the weight of the Rangers jersey, but hopefully he's able to turn a corner and kick on, because he's not be the first Rangers player that started off with a couple of horror shows and then turned out no bad for the club. So he's here, so that's what I'm hoping for. And the last 2 loanee defensive reinforcements are both centre-halves, a right centre-back and a left centre-back. But we'll start off here for a minute, and that's of course Nasa Jiga, who sacked off his Rangers career having a cigar in his mouth and running about with a pair of slippers as he looked like an absolute world beater. Now, like a lot of Rangers additions this summer, it's completely fell off a cliff and he's running about with a pair of Timbies on and looking really, really lost. It's weird, ladies and gentlemen, but it is another curious case of our circus on the park, making good players look bang average as we're completely lost with the system and the shape. It could be very interesting to see what you think about that, but you obviously partner him with the likes of Derek Cornelius, who we did spend about 18 minutes last night speaking about. He was our last signing in the transfer window, so if you haven't seen that video, please consider checking out, as we really go to the depths of what this player could potentially be and why I'm so hopeful and thankful that he is at the football club, right? But that's the defensive loanees, if you want to head and go look at it. And see if you take a step back, Jayden, Derek, Jiga, and then Max Aarons, there's a real genuine potential that could be a back 4 for us at some point this season. And I've genuinely never seen an entire back line be built up of loanees. Have you? Ladies and gentlemen, now I know Derek's in a slightly different spot as there is an option to buy, but the rest of them is pretty much guaranteed they won't be here in 12 months, as apparently it would cost a lot of money for Jayden. Wolves paid just 10 million for Jiga at less than 6 months ago, or a year ago I should say, so they're not going to be accepting anything less than that. And obviously Max Aarons is on a hell of a lot of money in terms of his wages as well, so it's very, very strange. We badly needed defensive reinforcements, but we have attacked and used the market to bring in players that are going to be here for 12 months at most, barring 1 of those players. It's a very, very bold strategy, and it is a very interesting one. I would love to know your opinion on how we went about this the right way or the wrong way. You can let me know down in the comment section below, because there is one other loanee that we need to mention to finish up the Fab 5, and that is none other than Mikey Moore, who's a guy with ridiculous potential, ridiculous hype around him, and he obviously covers both positions, both left and the right out there. You're yet to see his true talent on the ball and his true directness, but again, he's not had too many opportunities. I thought he's ran his pan in versus at the Old Firm, so he's definitely got something about him, but I'm waiting to see that quality on the ball. But when you take a step back at it, ladies and gentlemen, that is 5 of the 14 additions we've brought in, and that's the loanees. Getting to the permanent signings, however, we did have 1 on a free transfer, pre-contract, compensation fee, whatever tag people want to use these days. You know what I'm talking about, and again, I've got no problems with that. I think it's a very, very clever move. I like Lyle. I think he's a smart addition, and going out there and hoovering up the talent of Scottish football is what this club used to be built on. So I like wee Lyle, and I don't think we'll get anything bad out of that free signing, let's put it that way. But moving on from Mr. Lyle Cameron, getting to the ones we spent our Mooney on. Let's start off with that backline then, shall we? And pick off, because the only centre-back, the only defender we spent genuine money on to keep permanently so far is Mr. Manny Fernandes, who came with a horrendous wordy mouth and a horrendous, almost laughing / mocking mindset from the Peterborough fans, saying, how on earth has he earned a move for Rangers? And it's interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because you look him, 6'6", he's already bagged the goal and he's already shown his aerial threat. The other centre-backs at this football club could probably learn something from him there, but he's also shown he is rough around the edges in several other areas. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can toughen up, if he can add those different aspects to his game, then bring those intangibles that he's got to being a big tall laddie that can dominate in the air. This could be a very, very good signing for the football club. But right now, you sit and look at it, is he starting? Nah, and it's the only one we spent money on. But enough talking to defenders, let's move up then, shall we? Let's get to the centre mid and talk about the two centre mids we brought in during the summer rebuild. The first one was obviously Mr. Joe Rothwell, who again started off up friggin' here and has just fell off a cliff. And this one's so weird to me because, unlike Manny, the wordy mouth regarding Rothwell was incredible. Everyone talked about how great he was. Oh, he'll pull the strings for you. Oh, he's the orchestrator. Oh, every stat suggested he should be a creative force for set pieces. As last year in the Championship, he by far created the most shots on goal than anyone else in that entire frickin' league. And there's a lot of money spent in the Championship as well, especially for those that come down from the Premier League. So it should be a hell of a lot better than this. But again, I'm hoping it's just teething issues and we're eventually going to figure out how to get the best out of Rothwell, because there's still a player in there. We just need to unlock it. Another centre mid that we brought in regarding the moolah that we spent for it is Mr. Tello Asgard, who unfortunately at the start of his career affected due to an injury. Sort of delayed him. Now he's getting drip fed the games and built up, and he's shown in his most recent Old Firm that he's no got an ego, he's no got any of that type of stuff, as he's willing to roll the sleeves up and do the hard yards, and he cut the head off the snake that is Callum McGregor with a very selfless performance. But again, considering his creativity and the numbers that he's had and how he plays for Norway in terms of his international duty, you're expecting a hell of a lot more when the ball's at his feet. But I think we'll get it. And that's almost a perfect transition into the right winging's position, because Ant-Man again then dropped it. You see the theme? It's scary, by the way. But there is a player in Ant-Man as well. And I think now with the additions of the strikers we've brought in, the guys that can get up and header the football, the guys that score a bit of height, it's going to actually fit him more as well. Because he's no the attack-minded cut inside shoot. He lives and breathes on who's in the centre of the box and who he's able to hit with crosses. And now that he's got a bit of height to aim for, this creative winger that he was last year when he got 17 assists for open play last year, might see the benefit of the striking additions and his slight tweak in the profile at what he can hit with throwing these balls in the mixer. So I'm hoping Ant-Man turns it around as well, starts showing his quality now that he's maybe perfectly paired with a couple centre forwards that at least got a bit of height to them. But where the sort of lingering frustrations and all these wee stuff, I didn't have that regarding the left winger that we brought in for a permanent transfer, and that is Mr. Gazima. I think if you ask 99.9% of the Rangers fan base who's been our best signing so far this season, I think we would all lean towards the Gasman, despite his most recent game of football getting chucked out of position. But that's Russell Martin Hings. I think he's been bright, and honestly every goal he scores and every performance and every time he tries to drag us through, despite the young age he is as well, it almost makes me feel guilty for how much we robbed Sheffield's Wednesday. So before we move on, ladies and gentlemen, thank you Sheffield Wednesday. But Gazima, hi, he's great. And as the postie goes ahead and delivers a letter, I'll go ahead and deliver what was one of my favourite signings of the summer, and that is none other than Mr. Bojan Majowski, who you've probably heard if you've been a watcher of this channel how much I've rated him from afar. He's one of those players you hate to play against but you would love to have in your team. He's a master of the dark arts, if you want to call it, and I think we need to get a wee bit more nasty, you know what I mean? There's too many good guys and nice guys on the park for Rangers. We need to start that type of stuff and and play at that edge and try to ask some interesting questions, and I think that's what the big man does, you know what I mean? He's always getting stuck in, he's throwing his body, he wins you free kicks, he tries to win you penalty kicks, but you can also put the ball into the back of net, which he's proven in terms of Scottish football. In terms of a proven goal scorer in this country, when you wave goodbye to the likes of Dessers, you need to bring somebody in there that's got at least a track record of doing that, because it sure as hell ain't the likes of Danilo. So yeah, Bojan was a massive, massive signing for this club, and dare I see another steal when you consider how much we paid for him. But I've left two to the very, very last, and do you know why, ladies and gentlemen? Because I've left the two most expensive signings that this football club has made till last. You know, you already know one, and that was Yusuf. We spoke about him yesterday, Mr. Shemete. We talked about the lad yesterday. Good luck to him. Obviously, it's not his fault. We've paid what we have for him, and Kevin's went ahead and spent the money on him. Again, it's no this kid's fault, but it wasn't Flo's fault all those years ago as well, who averaged a goal every 2 games, but was still labelled as a flop. You know what I mean? But time moves on, money moves on, and 8 million these days is completely different when you compare it to the money we spent on Flo all those years ago when you catch up with that money. So it is unfortunate the label is he is the second most expensive signing for this football club, but I can imagine in a year or two's time he won't be sitting there, because that's where money is gone these days, that's where the market is moving these days. But he's just the real first step in that direction under that Niners money that we've now got to freaking spend. So good luck to the big man. I'm hoping, obviously it's an incredible gamble, but I'm hoping it all pays off and the big yin can maybe sit up front with the likes of Bojan. Imagine the two of them. Imagine the two of them in the box with Ant-Man chucking crosses and Gasman chucking this and Big throwing the javelins. Can you imagine if we were actually an attacking football team? One or the other. Play both in domestic football. Pin them back. We're playing against part of the buses. I'll let it go for an eventual preview when I do have a meltdown. But there's another player that was the second most expensive signing of this summer. Does anyone know who it is? Does anyone remember who it is? I'll give you a few seconds. We spent 4 million on him, apparently. Maybe even slightly more than that. And he's not here anymore. Now, if that hint doesn't give it away, we're obviously talking about Mr. Oscar Cortes, who was officially signed on the first day the transfer window opened, and he's left the club on loan the day that the transfer window ends. I don't think I've ever seen that before again in football. I might be wrong, it might be a common theme, but you sign somebody and loan them out when you spend that type of money on a player in a position you probably needed to go ahead and strengthen. But again, for me, in my opinion, where Oscar Cortes is becoming a bit of a punching bag these days, the guy needs game time. The guy needs to and find himself and find his confidence and find the belief that he had when he first joined this football club. He has been shattered with confidence, and playing under Russell Martin, who's playing on once on the left, once at the right, once at right back, staying this kid nae frickin' favours, who's still a young laddie. So good luck to Oscar. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people's written him off. I know where he sits in terms of worst pound for pound signing we've ever made. I get all that, but he's still young enough to turn it all around, and I hope he goes there. I hope he kills it. I hope he gets the game time which he should get, and he comes back to Rangers in a year time looking like a completely different player. So aye, that's it in terms of the ins, ladies and gentlemen. How do you feel? Do you think we've done enough? We brought in one centre back on a permanent, we brought on 2 other ones on loan. One of them does have an option. We brought in 1 left back, we brought in 1 right back, we brought in 2 midfielders, we brought in 2 different wingers, and we brought in 2 strikers as well. I mean, we did technically bring in 3 wingers with Cortes, but we've sent him out, so I didn't want to include it in terms of what we've now got until December. But one thing I do want to move on, speak about before we do move on, is see if you look at our signings. 7 of our 14 signings have been players that are standing over 6 feet tall. And that's something that was badly needed, because we are a tiny, tiny, tiny squad, and we get manhandled and bullied constantly. So you can see what we're trying to do, and that's identify a key weakness in our team. But that's the ins. Let's go ahead and get to the outs. But where we just spoke about 14 players coming in to the football club, we waved goodbye to 11 in total, including 5 loans out, which is important because you might remember we brought in 5 players via loan. 5 in, 5 out. Somewhere, somehow, Thanos is sitting on his big purple jacksie, delighted at that balance, whilst we also waved goodbye to 6 players leaving the club permanently, which was needed. And for those that do suffer with OCD, we'll start with the loans once again. Mason Munn went ahead and joined Dunfermline, which I think is a brilliant move for him. That kid needs game time. Don't strangle our young prospects with food, the thing they need. And that's game time, especially in a competitive environment. I think that's a brilliant loan for Mason Munn. Good luck to the young man. Ross McCausland's obviously left to join Aris and join up with the likes of Leon Balogun and Big Connor Goldson as they go ahead and rebuild the Rangers team earlier. But this one is a loan, but Ross McCausland obviously has an option to buy in there as well. So I don't imagine we'll see young Ross back at this football club any time soon. Now, unfortunately, the same can't be said for the other two loanees we're about to speak about very, very quickly. But first up, we have Ben Davies, who eventually left his football club to go ahead and join Oxford, and that'll be one that I imagine will come back in 12 months and then need to go on loan again because no one's willing to pay what we stupidly gave that guy in terms of his contract. We find ourselves in another Herrera situation, just loaning these boys out time and time again until their contract eventually runs out. So that's a painful one, but I imagine Ben will go down there and play well, just like he played well last season for Birmingham. He's a solid defender at that level. I imagine he'll play well. We'll see some pretty stats, but again, will they buy him? Probably no, but good luck to Ben down there. Also, meaning we need to go ahead and talk about another player now, and that's Mr. Jose Cifuentes, who was supposed to be sun, he was supposed to be this, he's supposed to be that. Then it started to rain and all that disappeared. But again, we are getting closer and closer to winter time, so we had to get the kid off his books, and he went ahead and joined Toronto. Is anyone telling him it snows out there? I don't know how he's going to feel about that weather temperature, but yeah, getting his wages off just like Ben Davies, getting him gone, getting him out the dressing room, getting these types of players away for the club is needed to just balance the books and obviously get us being able to spend more. Now, the last loanee that we need to mention, I left to last because we kind of touched on him in terms of the ins, and that was Oscar Cortez. Again, just echoing what I said, this is a brilliant, brilliant move. Where I'm frustrated at seeing us doing the Herrera thing with Ben Davies and Cifuentes, who can never move on. These players, I still feel like they're son in Cortez, but he needs that game time, just like a Mason Munn needs the game time. So I'm very, very hopeful this loan will be used correctly and we'll actually see a benefit of loaning a player out, and it's not just kicking the can down to eventually running down a contract. So aye, good luck to him, but that's the loanees. Now, it is worth noting that some transfer windows do close in a couple of days' time, and there's apparently some interest in taking Clinton Nisala on loan and going ahead and moving him on, etc, etc. So we'll wait to see if that happens, but again, I can't sit here and speculate and break that down and chuck him on the list when it's not yet happened. Also, with how bad we are defensively, with how stripped back we are in terms of left-footed defenders at this football club, is there's only freaking one left-sided centre-back, with keeping a 19-year-old that's got SPFL experience. Again, it was a wee bit up and down, but he had some good games, he had some bad games. He's a young freaking player. Instead of throwing these guys out into the bin with how paper thin we are in terms of our depth, is it no better than going out and spending and splashing 3 million on another project, maybe looking in-house and saying, oh, there's a left-sided centre-back there that's actually played in this team before. Maybe it's worth keeping around the building, because you just never ever know when any of these centre-halves are going to break down. But I don't know how you feel about Big Clinton, but I just think it's silly to chuck him out the door as well when you consider your depth back there is shocking. And that actually perfectly transitions to the next part as we get to the sales parts of the transfers out. And we went ahead and sold our entire left back department. No, I'm not joking. No, I'm not doing dramatic effect. I'm talking about we sold every single left back when the window opened that we had on our books is gone. We wiped the slate clean. And if there was a position on the park I thought we should be wiping clean, it was in the left back spot, if I'm honest. But young Robbie Fraser, who played very, very well last season at Livingston, ended up getting moved on. Best wishes to the kid. Hopefully goes on to have a very successful career. You also saw the likes of Ridvan Yilmaz finally go back to Turkey after being linked with him every 4.5 minutes for the last 3 freaking years. Talented player on his day, just couldn't stay fit. He was a walking sick note, so I think the money we got for him is actually a pretty damn good deal in my opinion. Speaking of, we got the all good money for Mr. Jeff Day as well, right? We're getting about 6.5 million and possibly a sell-on clause added into that as well, which might end up coming into play in a couple of years' time if he continues to kick on and develop. talent in there, but you know what I mean, he's not really a defender, and we need a defender at this football club, especially at the left back. But again, he came in for pennies and we sold him for $6.5 million. That's the transfer strategy we should be doing. It shouldn't be mad punts on people for the Championship or English football that we need to overpay for. There is talent actually out there if you're willing to look and be patient and actually spend a wee money scouting these guys and really dipping in to other markets. And I look at Jeff Dee's time as, yes, it wasn't always an success on the park, but if you look at what we brought him in for compared to what we sold him for, it's got to be considered a success. But again, that was our entire left back department until we went ahead and brought in the likes of Young, Jayden on loan for 12 months. But right now, technically, in 12 months time, we don't have a single left back on our books. You know what I mean? We must be identifying the free agent market. There must be some sort of resemblance a plan. Maybe it is even putting Clinton Nassau out in the left back spot. Maybe transitioning him out there like the same way Papac came in as a centre back, then got moved out the left back spot. Maybe it is the type of cover, but it seems quite mental to look at, if I'm being honest. But let's continue with the sales then, shall we? Pröpper was one of the earliest players to leave this football club this summer, and by all accounts he's been back to Dutch football. He's got the armband back on and he's getting another very, very good word of mouth. Must just be a good player that suits that system and that style in that league. Football, again, no harsh feelings for him. Scored a couple of big goals. Got knocked out by Jack Butland. It was an experience by big Robin Pröpper. Moving on from there, however, we get to obviously the biggest incomings, I should say, and that was the two strikers we went ahead and sold. We brought in two, we sold two. Did we strengthen? Did we weaken? I'll leave that over to you. But I'll start off with Egeman then, shall we? And Egeman left his football club for double digits on £10.5 million. You know what I mean? I don't know if there is a selling fee. I hope to God there is, because on his debut in 45 minutes he took three boys for a walk, nutmegged them twice and scored 2 goals in the game of football. You know what I mean? There's a talented player in there, and I can't help but feel if he never made that silly decision at St Mirren, if Russell Martin didn't come out and call it out, we'd have got more for him. I know some people say, oh no, there's a release clause. Truthfully, and this is just me, I'm not telling you what to think, I didn't believe that for a second, you know what I mean? Because see, if there was a £10.5 million release clause, would have heard about it a lot earlier than what we actually heard about it, you know what I mean? We only heard of this mythical release clause, which is a lower value than what apparently we were wanting a couple weeks ago in the negotiations. Way, Leo, this mythical release clause comes after he refuses to come on and his value tanks a wee bit. So it's just a bit too convenient to me. But again, for me, his silly decision, Russell Martin biting to that decision, probably took some money off the belt. I feel like we could have made even more, but the guy didn't want to be here. He didn't. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, very, very good player, but he didn't want to be there. So we had to move him on, and that we did. And we made some good money. Again, if you look at it on just the stat sheet, he came in for about 660k. He never came in for 2 million. I just didn't believe that either. Came in for around about there. Never stayed long enough to hit many of his add-ons. So again, maximum, say £1 million, and we sell him for 10 times as much. Again, that's a successful transfer strategy. And you notice the successful transfers, you notice the ones we make a lot of money on, aren't they just identifying the English market and picking these players up on big wages and big contracts and spending big fees on? It's when we've actually went out with that and picked up players for pennies and been able to flip them. Yeah, I'm a wee bit worried that we've flipped that transfer strategy, but Egeman leaves his football club as a very, very talented player. I think he's going to go on to have a very good career, and I really hope we've got a sell-on fee, because there's already folk looking at him already after his first performance for Leo. Let's see, ladies and gentlemen. But the last but not least is Mr. Cyril Dessers, who leaves his football club for a rumoured between about £3.5 million, which is an absolute steal in my opinion for a goal scorer that scored 52 goals in 2 years in Scotland. And where this guy broke me mentally more than any striker I've ever experienced. He is the weirdest footballer I've ever experienced and went through the journey watching playing. You know what I mean? I've smiled, he's made me cheer, he's made me fist pump, he's made me greet, he's made me swear, he's made me raging, and that's all usually in the same half, by the way. I've never experienced anything like Cyril Dessers, but again, if you look at the stats and you look at the statistics, that's 52 goals walked out of your football club for £3 million, and we've spent more than double on that than a guy that scored 3 goals in his entire career. Again, I'm not want to continue to throw that at the kid, but we're looking at the transfers, the ins and it out, so we need to do some comparison. So it's a massive gamble, but again, it's probably more so to do with maybe Dessers' wage. There might be something in that. It might be on the higher scale, so they're trying to cleanse that, bring the wage down, so again balancing the books. But again, he does lead this football club with the most enigmatic performances I've ever seen for any Rangers centre forward. And despite him breaking me mentally, and despite the cup final penalty thing, and despite there's loads of little niggles, loads of little things, if you look at him as a professional, he was always available, he was always fit, and even when it was clear he was moving on, he still trained, he still came off the bench, he was willing to come off, he was still willing to bust his pan in, and that shows you what a professional Cyril Dessers actually is. So honestly, for me, to the Nigerian Nightmare, best of luck, big man, for the rest of your career. It's been a journey. But with us finishing the transfer out section of today's video, before we move on to the depth chart and start chucking up some names and chucking up some pictures, if you want just a quick little comparison of our business, we sold 2 strikers, we brought in 2 strikers, you know what I mean? We loaned out 1 centre mid, we signed 3 centre mids. You look at us defensively, we sold 3 left backs, we loaned in 1 left back. We have loaned out 2 wingers for this football club, while signing 3 wingers in total, whilst one of them being one that we've loaned out. Aye, it's very strange. But also going into the old centre-back spot, we have sold 1 centre-half whilst waving goodbye on loan to another one, whilst bringing in 2 loanees ourselves, one of them being an option to buy, while spending a wee bit of money on another project centre-back. And that's the comparisons, that's the direct comparisons you can make regarding the transfer ins and transfers outs. And whilst you go ahead and think about that, I would love to know your opinions down there in the comment section below, what you would rate this transfer window from 0 to 10, 5 being bang average, 10 obviously being the best. Let me know your opinions down there in the comment section below. For me, I'm probably sitting at about a 6, you know what I mean? There's still room for potential for a lot of these players, and I do back a lot of them, you know what I mean? I really like Boja, and I think, and I hope and pray the big 6'4" centre forward can start banging in and heading goals in very soon. There's definitely potential for this window to mean much, but again, some of the decisions we made, the glaring missed opportunities at left back and stuff like that we've not done, the fact that the likes of Rabi Matondo still at this football club rinsing money for this club, still players sitting down there with wages that we've not been able to flip on. There's still little bits of niggles, little bits of frustration, but right now I'm probably sitting out about a 6, if I'm being honest, with the potential to grow if these players that are back, even the likes of Asgard and Ant-Man and that, to finally kick into gear. But it's been such a poor start to the season, it's hard to jump too high in my personal opinion. But again, I'd love to know yours down in the comment section below. And whilst you go ahead and do that, we'll get to the latter part of today's video, which is looking at the depth chart so we can go ahead and rate what our squad actually looks like now. Starting off with the goalie, of course we have Jack Butland, we have Liam Kelly, and we have a revolving door of youngsters, but it's probably going to be right. I'd say strength and depth there is fine, you know what I mean? Jack Butland had a lot of questions coming in to this summer, but I think Jack Butland's been arguably our best player that's not named Gazama and has not been scoring goals for his football club. We got pumped once this season. If it wasn't for Jackie B, we'd have been pumped in every single game, barring the Old Firm, which again was an absolute snooze fest. Moving on to the right back spot, we obviously have Captain James Henry Tavernier, we have Max Aarons, and we have Mr. Dujon Sterling as well, the mustard himself, that I imagine when he does get fit and he's able to get back on the park, he's going to sit and look at that depth chart, and he's going to sit and look at those chances and be like, yeah, I fancy that being the start of the season. So it's going to be an interesting battle when all of them are fully fit and ready to freaking go. Moving on to the right centre back spot, we of course have John Soapy Suter and Giga. One of them's on a 12-month loan, the other one's on a 12-month contract that's running it, so no much roots planted there. But again, there's also the addition of Manny Fernandez at that right centre-back role, which is his spot where he would like to play. So yeah, some depth there at least. But moving on to the left centre-back spot, there's Derek Cornelius and an out-of position Suter, an out-of-position Giga that we're not going to be putting on these lists, and an out-of-position Manny Fernandez. The only genuine strength and the only genuine player that could honestly be considered as a true backup to Derek Cornelius is young Clinton Nisala, and I think that's the depth chart. That's what the left centre-back spot looks like, and it's why I would keep Clinton Nisala, and I wouldn't loan him out in the next day or two, because if anything goes wrong there, surely we can't go back to playing people out of position. It's been a major fault in numerous goals we've conceded this season. There's got to be some forward thinking, but yeah, left centre back now we've got Derek Cornelius and possibly Clinton Nisala. Moving on to the left back spot, we've got Jayden, and that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is it at the left back spot. We are putting our entire left back spot at the hands or feet of a player that's played 26 professional top matches. But again, if Russell Martin wants to do switching and twitching and playing people out of position and making them very, very uncomfortable, at a push, if anything happens to Jayden and he isn't able to play every 3.5 days, 50 games a season that he's never done before, we could also maybe possibly play Tav out there. We could maybe possibly play Aarons out there. And when he is back fit, we could possibly play the likes of Dujon Sterling out there. But again, that would be playing people out of position and making them uncomfortable. Why do we continue to do this? I'm just going to chuck all the centre mids together so you can go ahead and look, because I want to start off with the best bit of business we done this transfer window, and that's keeping our boy Nico Raskin, and we needed that. Because whatever's going on behind the scenes between Raskin and Martin, sort it out, lads, and be adults. We need Raskin. We need the guy that was the player/players player of the year, playing in the middle of the park, that's been embarrassing all season. Figure that nonsense out. But again, there is Raskin there, which was a massive boost to this football club, and is one of the reasons I didn't put it. I put the transfer window at a 6 and not a 4, because if we'd have said goodbye to Raskin, it would have been down there. But you've also got the likes of Diamandi, you've got the likes of Connor Barron. There was some interest in him last night as well. Rangers were right to reject that, in my opinion. There's Lyle Cameron, there's Telo Asgard, there's Barami that changed his minds as well, or I think the club's changed his mind because they see something in the laddie. But you take a step back and you look at the centre mid position, there's enough strength and depth in there. There's got to be a combination when you add Joe Rothwell. Sorry, I nearly forgot about him as well. Probably rightly so, Kevin, considering how he's played this season. But there has to be a rotation or a combination that can work when you look at those names and you look at those players. We shouldn't be losing midfield battles to teams that can't afford a meal deal at Morrison's every other weekend, troops. We can't when you've got that in your squad. Figure it out, man, because there's enough quality there. Moving on to the left wing position, we obviously have Gazama, who I think is number 1 on everyone's list right now. You've got Finlay Curtis, who's got to be chopping at the door, and there's of course Mikey Moore, who's a very, very talented player that worked hard in the Old Firm, but I'm yet to see why he should start over the gas man, or dare I say start over Curtis, who does nothing but score goals when he gets to play football. So that's how I would sit that. Gazama, Curtis and Mikey Moore. Moving on to the right hand side, you've got Ant-Man. Yeah, you've got Ant-Man. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we can play people out of position and make them uncomfortable, the same way Gazama was at the Old Firm. We can play Finlay Curtis here, who would play anywhere for this football club because he's willing to do that. And there's also the option to potentially play Mikey Moore as the right mid spot. But in terms of genuine right wingers, there's one. That's Ant-Man. And that leads to the old striking position, which is the single most interesting one to look at in my personal opinion, because you've got Bojan, you've got Shermeti, and of course you have our boy Danilo, who everyone's forgotten about, possibly rightly so considering how he's played this season. But that is it in terms of the striking position. We've waved goodbye to the wonder kid Egamanu. We waved goodbye to the goal scorer that was Cyril Dessers, banging in 50 goals. Well, should have scored 150 during that run. So it's interesting to see and compare to what we were last season when we had Egaman, Dessers and Danilo. Now we've got Bojan, Shermeti and Danilo. Do you think it's an improvement? Do you think it's worse? Let me know down in the comments section below. But when you take a step back and look at it, ladies and gentlemen, that is our squad for at least till December, unless we're adding some free agents and starting tapping in to that market. How do you feel about that? Do you believe, push everything away what we've seen regarding the poor performances and the drop, chuck everything away, do you believe that squad, position for position, is good enough to win a league title? Interested to see how you feel down in the comment section below. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen, for another transfer recap. That's it for another coming down on yet another transfer window. It's been very, very interesting. We needed a cleansing. We needed to clean in the decks. Clearly, we've started to do that. Can the new players come in and grab the game by the scruff of the neck that they've not been able to do so far? I certainly hope so, but there isn't half a lot of gambles in that list. But let me know your opinions, as we seemingly have identified the English market, and that's where we're putting a lot of our stock in these days, and almost moving away from the punts that's made us ironically the most money. But alright, I'll wrap up today's video right there, because again you've seen far too much of it. As always, shout out the legends that are signed up to the channel legend memberships. Thank you all so much. Shout out those that are also signed up to the supporter range, and to each and every single person that's again saw too much of this face recently yet still tunes in, still subscribes, still helps us on our push to 70k, which is getting scarily close now. That's all because he is. Thank you all so much for the support so far. I promise to give you a couple days off now at least to reset, recharge, and enjoy the international break, and enjoy the wave of the stress that we've had the last couple of weeks. But until the next time I see you, I've been CJ Nova92. Thank you all so much for watching. All the best, and bye bye.